Today, we'll be discussing coin collecting, or numismatics, from numisma, the Latin word for coin. We'll start with how coins are made. Before a coin can go into production, it has to be approved by the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury. Once it's been approved by the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, it can go into production at one of 4 U.S. mint facilities in operation today: Denver, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and West Point. Now, the first step is blanking, where they create blank coins from strips of metal. Before it can get any of the imprints on it, you have to start with a blank canvas. They blank it, and they create the blank piece, which is called a blank. They then anneal it, which is where they heat it up, and then they put it in water that has some chemicals in it. And the idea is that it is then going to be softer and less susceptible to breaking when they imprint the design on it. Then they wash and dry it. And then they upset it, which is where they press the coin in such a way that the edge raises up and you get that little groove. At this point, the blank is now called a planchette. Then they strike it. They press it between 2 different pieces of metal, and then you get the head and tail image pressed onto it as it goes through. There's a huge machine for this. And then once they do quality control immediately after, there's a special machine called the waffle, which the rejects get thrown into and bent before they're recycled, so they can't be used on the streets. And then they bag and pack them. There's these massive machines that weigh them out and then separate them based on proper weight, and then the mints hold on to them until the Federal Reserve needs them. Now we're going to talk about some coin terms. So I've already thrown some coin vocab at you. Hopefully it wasn't too much. Some of the easiest things to explain. So heads is called the obverse, and then the reverse is tails. Reading is those little lines on the edge. So when we upset the coin and we made the edge, they then add these little notches on the edge. It was developed to combat coin clipping, which I guess back in the day people would shave off a bit of a coin. It doesn't really make sense to me. I get that now there's less of a coin and you're pretending like it's still the same value. I guess when we were on the gold standard, I don't even know. But I don't really understand, how are you shaving it? Are you shaving it so significantly that you can take that silver? I don't get it. But that's why we do this. And then a clad is what most coins are today. You've got inside this quarter, there's a copper core, and then it's coated in a nickel copper alloy that gives it the silver sheen. But that's why if you look closely at quarters, when they've started to wear down, you can almost see a bit of that copper coloring. That's why. We'll get into this later when we talk about these coins that I have here, or you'll see in practice what this means. When you do coin collecting, you can have date set or type set. Date set is going to be a penny, nickel, dime, and quarter, and maybe a $50 from the same year. So that's a set of coins from the date. A type set is going to be, and I have a couple examples of this, it's commemorative $50. So it's all the same type of coin, a $50, but then there's differences between them, and that's why you're collecting them. So you can have date or type. Now there's many ways that you can store coins. You could see that I'm choosing the Ziploc bag method, which is very cheap, but doesn't necessarily protect the coins long term. You can get plastic flips, where each one can go in a little plastic container, and it helps preserve them. You can organize them however you want, but if you're handling them frequently, you could still damage them over time. It's not airtight, and to me, it doesn't seem as organized. Coin albums, when I did coin collecting with my dad growing up, we had coin album. That's very clean because it's labeled and it's organized and there's thicker pages, but you could see it on both sides, the obverse and reverse. And those are going to be a little bit more expensive. You might have to pay $20 or $50 for an album. So now we're going to talk about some of the specifics of US currencies. One requirement was to identify which person is on each US bill. And we'll see if I know. I did the research, so I should know, but I definitely don't. George Washington is on the 1. Lincoln is on the 5. Benjamin Franklin is on the 100. I am looking, but I'm not actually looking. I saw that Andrew Jackson is on the 20. Thomas Jefferson is on the 2. Ulysses S. Grant is on the 50, and Alexander Hamilton is on the 10. Unlike coins, which are produced at mints, paper money is printed at the U.S. Bureau of Engraving, and there's a location in D.C. and one in Fort Worth. And I think most of it comes out of Fort Worth. In 1975 and 1976, for the bicentennial, which is the 200th anniversary of the United States, technically 76, there were specialty quarter, half dollar, and dollar coins. The quarter features a colonial drummer, and the idea was that this represents the spirit of the American Revolution, and this was designed by Jack Eyre. The half dollar features Independence Hall, which symbolizes American democracy and the birthplace of the nation. This was designed by Seth Huntington. And then the dollar coin depicts the Liberty Bell, which represents the historical significance of the Liberty Bell, but also, because it's superimposed over a moon, it represents the advancements of the space program. And that was designed by Dennis Williams. For the coin collecting merit badge tasks, you had to collect a 1-cent coin from the year group 1959 to 2008 and a 1-cent coin from the year group 2010 to present. I have one from 1979 and I have this one from 2021. Explain how and why the 1-cent coins issued in 2009 were different from either of the other 2-year groups. The pennies in 2009 were issued with 4 different reverse designs to commemorate the bicentennial, 200th, of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent. Production was low, so these pennies are rare, so they're not asking us to collect them. It's so kind. 5-cent coins, nickels. One from 1959 to 2003. I have one from 1959. And then one from 2006 to present, and I have 2022. And again, they did 1959 to 2003, and then we skipped 2004 and 2005 and did 2006 to present because the 5-cent coins issued in 2004 to 2005 were part of the Westward Journey nickel series, which featured 4 designs to honor the bicentennials of the Louisiana Purchase and the Lewis and Clark expedition. How neat. Collect a 10-cent coin from 1965 to present, and this is from 1974. And then 25-cent coins. There were a lot of these. Collect a 25-cent coin from 1965 to 1998, and I have one from 1984. 2 examples from the 50-state quarter territories program, 1999 to 2009. And I have 2 from 2000, one that shows Virginia and one that shows Pennsylvania. 2 designs from the America the Beautiful program, 2012 to 2021. I have one from 2021, which is the crossing of the Delaware. I have one from 2018, which depicts the Apostle Islands in Wisconsin. 2 designs from the American Woman Quarter program, 2022 to 2024. I have a 2023, and then I have a 2025, and I think this just wasn't updated because the 2025 one is Ida B. Wells, and the 2023 one, Jovita Idar. This one's really cool because it's a super clean obverse, and then her dress coat jacket thing is all words, and she was a journalist. Explain the purposes of each of those programs. So the 50 states territories was to celebrate American history and diversity. They were honored in order of admission to the Union. America the Beautiful was to honor America's national parks and sites. So the reverse designs featured one site from each of the 50 states plus DC. American Women celebrated the accomplishments and contributions of women throughout U.S. history. So in addition to Jovita Idar and Ida B. Wells, there are also, among many other women, you could also find Maya Angelou, Sally Ride, Eleanor Roosevelt. We love our women. All of them ideally hope to elicit pride in our country. They encourage coin collecting, and they generate revenue for the United States. Okay, half-dollar coins. Collect a half-dollar coin from 1965 to present, 1971. These are cool. They're just very American. Is that Kennedy? John F. Kennedy. Beautiful. Collecting dollar coins. Collect a dollar coin from the following design groups. Susan B. Anthony, 1979 to 1981. I have the 1979 one. Sacagawea, 1990 to 2005, with her child on her back. One of the biggest things that Lewis and Clark in their journals would talk about was how it was so much easier to talk to tribes when they had a woman with a child on her back, because it's like very clear to any tribe as you're walking up that if you have a woman with a baby on her back, you're probably not there to fight. Just her presence alone helped them have a lot more positive interactions. So it's cool that on the coin, you have Sacagawea and her little baby. A U.S. president's coin from 2000-2014. I have, this actually doesn't have the year on it. I have Andrew Jackson, and it just says 7th president, 1829 to 1837, but it doesn't have the year the coin was produced. So that's kind of interesting, but I have Andrew Jackson of the US presidents. So that's all of the US coins. And then the other thing that you could do, one of the options, was collecting 20 world coins from 7 different countries, which I just had. I haven't been to the Bahamas or Colombia, so I don't really know. I think my mom got me the Bahamian coins, probably the same when it comes to the Canadian coins. I'm wondering if I just picked up the Colombia coin when I was in South America, but the rest are just left over from my travels, which is kind of cool. The Canadian coins, I have a 1-cent coin, which has a maple leaf on it. I have a 10-cent coin, which has a little sailboat on it. And then I have a 25-cent coin that has a caribou on it. And then their $2 or their toonie has a polar bear on the back. I have a Boliviano from Bolivia. And this is just one Boliviano. And it has its coat of arms, Bolivia's coat of arms. Euros, this was actually interesting. I was trying to figure out why certain euros had different designs on the back. So my €1, a 5-cent euro, and a 2-cent euro all have an oak leaf with an acorn on it, which is an image in Germany. So these euros are from Germany. My 50-cent and my 20-cent euro show the Brandenburg Gate, so those are also Germany. And then I have a 10-cent euro from Italy, and it shows the birth of Venus. I have 3 Moroccan dirham. I have a 10, a 5, and a 1. So my 10 is King Hassan II. My 5 shows the Hassan II Mosque. And then my 1 is King Mohammed. I have Bahamian coins. So I have the 1 cent, which shows the starfish. I have a 5 cent, which has a pineapple on it. I have a 10 cent, which shows a bonefish. And then a 25 cent, which has a little sailboat. My Colombian peso, this is cool because it shows a quimbaya spindle wheel with stylized bird's head. So it has this like what I would consider kind of an Aztec-y design. Quimbaya was a civilization that is part of Colombian history. I'm sure that I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I have 2 Ecuadorian centavos, which is really interesting because these aren't a thing anymore. I mean, they're a thing, but in 2000, Ecuador moved to the US dollar. So if you ever go to Ecuador and you're from America, you can just use your money, which is cool. So these are gonna be pre-2000. I have a 25 centavos and a 50 centavos, and they depict notable Ecuadorian figures and then the Ecuador coat of arms right next to them. Centavos are still in circulation, but when they switch to the US dollar, this 25 centavos is the equivalent of a quarter, and the 50 centavos is the equivalent of a $50 because they're on the US dollar system now, which is kind of cool. And that's coin collecting.